first start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Did we have any correspondence?
I did not receive.
I just want to make one announcement with respect to the agenda. We had originally, because of the time constraints on applying for the Suffolk County Fresh Pond grant, we had originally thought we were going to try and discuss it and put it on today's agenda, but since we will have a full board tomorrow at the work session, we're going to discuss it tomorrow, and then if we decide to adopt or reject, we will have that special meeting at the end of tomorrow's work session. So for those of you, who might have noticed it on the agenda, and it's now off, that is why. So I just wanted to put that out there. I want to open up the meeting to anyone who has questions on resolutions, not legislative law resolutions that had public hearings, but anything that's just a resolution. Okay. There being no one, we will move on to the resolutions. Albert, if you could get us started.
Be resolved that the town board of the town of Shelter Island hereby directs that a public hearing shall be held on Monday, June 24th, 2024 at 6:02 p.m. to hear any and all persons either for or against a local law entitled, a local law amend Chapter 106 entitled Rights of Way to include the regulation of sidewalks, at which provides as follows. A local law amending Chapter 106 entitled Rights of Way to regulate sidewalks, be it enacted by the town board of the town of Shelter Island as follows. Section 1, legislative intent. The town board finds that dangerous conditions exist when certain obstructions such as tables, chairs, and signage encroach into a sidewalk and pedestrians are forced to step into the road where there could be vehicular traffic. This danger is particularly amplified in business districts where the combination of pedestrian and vehicular traffic is greater. It is the intent of this local law to protect those persons traversing sidewalks by ensuring a 3-foot free and clear walking path. Summary of the proposed law. The purpose of this local law is to protect the health and safety and welfare of those who traverse Shelter Island sidewalks by prohibiting obstructions thereon. It also allows the town to remove such obstructions if the property owners adjoining same fail to do so. Be it further resolved that the town clerk is hereby authorized and directed to publish the following notice of public hearing. So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Be it resolved that the town board of the town of Shelter Island hereby directs that a public hearing shall be held on Monday, June 24th, 2024 at 6:04 p.m. to hear any and all persons either for or against a local law entitled A Local Law Amending Chapter 65 entitled Filming, to increase the deadline for filming film permit applications from 14 days to 30 days prior to the proposed film shoot, of which provides as follows. Local law amending Chapter 65 entitled Filming to increase the deadline for filming and film permit applications from 14 days to 30 days prior to the proposed film shoot. And actually the summary is the same. The purpose of this local law is to ensure that the town clerk and other town officials have the proper time to review applications for film permits in order to ensure film shoots do not interfere with the peace and enjoyment of the community. And be it further resolved that the town clerk is hereby authorized and directed to publish the following notice of public. So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Be it resolved that the town board of the town of Shelter Island hereby directs that a public hearing shall be held on Monday, June 24th, 2024 at 6:06 p.m. to hear any and all persons either for or against a local law entitled A Local Law Amending Chapter 126 entitled Vehicles and Traffic to add parking restrictions to the north side of Teakwood Avenue and add a crosswalk across Clinton Avenue, of which provides as follows. The legislative intent is the town board finds that during the summer season, May 15th through September 15th, with the increased traffic to the Shelter Island Yacht Club and coupled with the relative narrowness of Teakwood Avenue, There should be no parking on a certain portion on the north side of Cheekwood Avenue. This will avoid a situation where an emergency vehicle would be prevented from fully accessing Cheekwood Avenue, as well as potentially protect against a vehicular accident due to the two-way traffic at such a choke point. Additionally, the town board has determined that to ensure safe pedestrian traffic to the yacht club, a crosswalk across Clinton Avenue is required. So there's two sections of the code that are amended. And be it further resolved that the town clerk is hereby authorized and directed to publish the following notice of public hearing. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Whereas Drew Harvey, 21 Cove Road, has petitioned the town of Shelter Island for permission to install a mooring at Smith Cove at a location designated as latitude 41.051250 north degrees north and longitude minus 72.316663 degrees west. Now therefore, be it resolved that pursuant to section 90-5 of the code of the town of Shelter Island, a public hearing will be held at 6:08 PM prevailing time on the 24th day of June, 2024, in the Shelter Island Town Hall, Shelter Island, New York, for all interested persons to be heard in favor of or in opposition to the proposed installation. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Whereas William Meehan, 35 North Midway, has petitioned the town of Shelter Island for permission to install a mooring in Cuckoos Harbor at a location designated as latitude 41.0882 degrees north and longitude 72.32245 degrees west. Now therefore be it resolved that pursuant to section 90-5 of the code of the town of Shelter Island, a public hearing will be held at 6:10 PM prevailing time on the 24th day of June, 2024, in the Shelter Island, Town Hall, Shelter Island, New York, for all interested persons to be heard in favor of or in opposition to the proposed installation. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Whereas Catherine Titonis, 2 Charlie's Lane, has petitioned the town of Shelter Island for permission to install a mooring in the West Neck Harbor at a location designated as latitude 41.04969 degrees north and longitude 72.43237 degrees west. Now therefore be it resolved that pursuant to section 90-5 of the code of the town of Shelter Island, a public hearing will be held at 6:12 PM prevailing time on the 24th day of June, 2024, in the Shelter Island Town Hall, Shelter Island, New York, for all interested persons to be heard in favor of or in opposition to the proposed installation. So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Whereas Robert and Elizabeth Jeffy, 17 Westmoreland Drive, have petitioned the town of Shelter Island for permission to remove and replace in place approximately 227 linear feet of existing timber bulkhead with vinyl bulkhead, backfill with up to 25 cubic yards of clean sand to be trucked in from an approved upland source per plans prepared by N Consultants dated March 18th, 2024. Now therefore be it resolved that pursuant to section 53-9 of the code of the town of Shelter Island, a public hearing will be held at 6:14 prevailing time on the 24th day of June, 2024, in the Shelter Island Town Hall for all interested persons to be heard in favor of or in opposition to the proposed construction. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Whereas a public hearing was duly held on Monday, May 6th, 2024, to hear any and all persons either for or against a local law entitled the local law amending Chapter 129 entitled Wetlands to transfer approval authority from the planning board to the town board, of which provides as follows. A local law amending Chapter 129 entitled Wetlands to transfer approval authority from the planning board to the town board. It be it enacted by the town board of Shelter Island, by the town board of the town of Shelter Island, as follows. Legislative intent. The town board finds that the wetlands of the town of Shelter Island are a precious resource, and as such, any construction within 100 feet of the wetlands boundary needs to be reviewed by the board, which is directly answerable to the residents. The town board. The planning board will revert to serving along with the Conservation Advisory Council as a critical advisory body to ensure these applications are fully vetted. What's the intent? Hold on. Summary of proposed law. The purpose of this local law is to transfer the regulatory authority of the wetlands permits to the town board from the planning board. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Motion carries.
Got me nervous there, Albert.
Whereas a public hearing was duly held on Monday, May 6, 2024, to hear any and all persons either for or against a local law entitled, "A Local Law Adding a New Chapter 67 entitled Fertilizer," to regulate the use of fertilizers on the island, of which provides as follows. A local law adding a new Chapter 67 entitled Fertilizer to regulate the use of fertilizer. Legislative intent. The town board finds that the island's sole aquifer is fragile and contains a thinner lens than the rest of the East End, which makes it more susceptible to harm from fertilizer contamination. Further, fertilizer can combine with nitrates to cause harmful algae blooms, as experienced in West Neck Bay, West Neck Creek and Harbor, and Fresh Pond. Therefore, the town board has determined that New York State and Suffolk County fertilizer regulations must be augmented locally to ensure our aquifer and surface waters are protected. Sort of severe effective date. This local law shall take effect upon the filing. Oh, okay, okay. All right, section 3 of the law. The proposed local law is enacted pursuant to Municipal Home Rule, section 10, Town Law 130-15, and subject to the pending approval of New York State. The purpose of this local law is to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the residents and guests of Shelter Island by protecting the aquifer and surface waters by imposing stringent regulations on the use of fertilizers. The local law shall take effect upon the filing with the Secretary of State pursuant to Municipal Home Rule. So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Just want to do a thank you to Lisa Shaw, Tim Pertel, Walter Richards, Greg Toner, Jake Hart, Tom Cronin, Lynn Weichert, and James Eklund, who put a lot of time in on this. Thank you.
Whereas a public hearing was duly held on the 6th day of May 2024 to hear any and all persons either for or against a local law entitled, a local law amending Chapter 133 entitled Zoning to create a sky plane height restriction pyramid law, of which provides as follows. A local law amending Chapter 133 entitled Zoning to create a sky plane height restriction pyramid law. Be it enacted by the town board of the town of Shelter Island as follows. Section 1, legislative intent. The town board finds that even though some single-family dwellings which do not exceed the maximum height are still inappropriate for the community, and that they overshadow adjoining homes, particularly if they are constructed on narrow lots, thus the town board has determined that to ensure that homes are in keeping with an established neighborhood and do not create negative impacts on their neighbors, an additional height restriction is warranted. I'm going to read the definition of a sky plane because that's kind of the new information. Sky plane is an area which begins at all property lines from the average elevation of the existing natural grade adjacent to that building or structure prior to site disturbance and extends inward at an angle of 45 degrees, except for lots located in the B, B1, and C zoning districts, whereby the average natural grade shall be augmented by 10 feet. And this will apply in all zones, A, AA, B, B1, and C, as read. So the change is essentially that all buildings and structures except for chimneys, weather vanes, and non-habitable spires, cupolas, domes on any lot shall remain within the sky plane of the lot. And that goes for each zoning district. The summary is that the purpose of this local law is to add a second height limitation to ensure that homes or other structures are of an appropriate scale for the surrounding neighborhood and do not loom over adjoining properties. This local law shall take effect upon filing with the Secretary of State pursuant to municipal home rule law. So moved.
Second, all in favor? Opposed?
No.
Motion carried. Whereas a public hearing was duly held on Monday, June 6, 2024, to hear any and all persons either for or against a local law entitled A Local Law Amending Chapter 126 entitled Vehicles and Traffic to amend parking restrictions at the town dock at Bridge Street, of which provides as follows. The legislative intent is the town board finds that there should be additional 1-hour parking on the east side of the parking area for the town dock at Bridge Street to provide more parking opportunities. Additionally, the town inadvertently restricted parking on State Route 114 near the town dock, and as such will repeal same. The amendment is that on the easterly and westerly side of the town right away at the town dock at Daring Harbor, the designated fire zone, it will be for a period in excess of 1 hour, not 2, between the hours of 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. What we are striking is HH, no person shall park a vehicle, nor shall the registered owner of a vehicle cause, suffer, allow, or permit said vehicle to park along 114 from the town dock on Bridge Street to a point 150 feet and ending at Verizon Pole 11 between the hours of 1 a.m. and 5 a.m. Because of striking HH, sections II through SS will be relettered to HH through RR. And a summary of the proposed law. The purpose of this local law is to reorganize the Bridge Street Town Dock parking area to create more parking opportunities and repeal certain parking regulations on Route 114 adjoining said area, as the town may not regulate state highways without state approval. The effective date, this local law shall take effect upon the filing with the Secretary of State pursuant to municipal home rule law. So moved.
Second.
Oh, May 6th, thank you. With that correction. So I moved to second.
Second with correction.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Be it resolved that the following dock application fees are hereby effective immediately. Application fee for docks, bulkheads, groins, and water control structures excluding moorings, $1,250. Permit fee for docks, bulkheads, groins, water control structures excluding moorings, $3,750. So moved. Sorry.
So you're
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Be it resolved that Hayden Rylot is hereby appointed to serve as traffic control officer for the year 2024 at a rate of $20 per hour, retroactive to May 30th, 2024. So move.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Be it resolved that Elizabeth Ann Danforth is hereby appointed to serve as a volunteer driver for the senior center for the year of 2024. So moved.
Second, all in favor? Motion carried. Be it resolved that Susan W. Brewer is hereby appointed to serve as a volunteer driver for the senior center for the year 2024. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Whereas Shelter Island Fireworks, P.O. Box 452, Shelter Island, New York, 11964, has requested permission to hold a fundraising event at 63 South Benantic Road on Friday, July 12th, 2024, from 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. for approximately 500 attendees. And whereas the required fees have been submitted, and whereas the applicant has requested an exemption from the noise ordinance. Now therefore, be it resolved that said request is hereby approved. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Whereas the Shelter Island Chamber of Commerce has requested to hold the Art and Craft Fair on the Shelter Island School grounds on August 24th, 2024, from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. with the rain date of August 31st, 2024. And whereas the application was submitted to the Police Department and Highway Department, and whereas the town board has waived the required fees, and whereas the Shelter Island Highway Department has stated that all garbage must be picked up in the area, any markings in the street must be washable and no obstructions on the road during the event. And whereas the Shelter Island Police Department is prepared to assist with this event, as done in the past, now therefore be it resolved that the said request is hereby approved. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Be it resolved that the supervisor is hereby authorized and directed to execute the agreement between the town of Shelter Island and Suffolk County for the youth sports and education opportunity funding with a term of January 1st, 2024 through September 30th, 2024. So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Whereas the town board desires to enhance the accessibility of the town of Shelter Island Justice Hall, and whereas in order to do so, architectural plans are required, and whereas the firm of Pam Pospisil and Brown Architects PC previously prepared such plans for the Shelter Island Police Department and is familiar with Justice Hall, and whereas said firm submitted a proposal for same for $18,975, and now therefore be it resolved that the town of Shelter Island shall retain the services of Pospisil and Brown Architects PC to prepare architectural plans for the enhancement of the accessibility of the town of Shelter Island Justice Hall for an amount of $18,975, and be it further resolved that the supervisor is hereby authorized to execute any and all documents in connection therewith, subject to the approval by the town attorney. So moved.
Second.
Discussion. I just want to let you know that in the 2024 budget, there was $25,000 set aside for this. So we have funds available. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carried.
The town board of the town of Shelter Island in the county of Suffolk, New York, hereby resolves by the favorable vote of a majority of all the members of said town board as follows. Section 1, the town board of the town of Shelter Island, the town, in Suffolk County, New York, hereby approves the form of tax pledge and collection agreement, the agreement presented at this meeting relating to the construction of additions, alterations, and improvements to the Shelter Island Public Library Society building and the issuance of revenue bonds by the Dormitory Authority of the State of New York as further described in the recitals to said agreement, with such changes, insertions, or omissions as such completion of the blanks therein as may be approved by the authorized representative as herein defined, the execution and delivery of the agreement to be conclusive evidence of such approval. Section 2, the supervisor and/or deputy supervisor, collectively the authorized representatives and individually the authorized representative, acting on behalf of the town and with the advice of the town attorney, are hereby authorized to execute on behalf of the town the tax pledge and collection agreement between the Shelter Island Public Library Society, Shelter Island Union Free School District, Town of Shelter Island Dormitory, Town of Shelter Island, the Dormitory Authority of the State of New York, and a trustee bank to be named. Section 3, the authorized representatives are hereby authorized collectively or individually to take any and all other actions necessary in connection with the foregoing and all matters related thereto. Section 4, this resolution shall take effect immediately. This requires a roll call vote. So, aye. Oh, so moves.
Second.
Albert, how do you vote?
Aye.
Meg?
Aye.
Benjamin?
Aye.
I vote aye. Motion carried.
Whereas the town of Shelter Island was awarded grant funds in the amount of $250,000 by Suffolk County for the purpose of offsetting capital costs associated with the new municipal wastewater treatment system. And whereas subsequent to the awarding of the grant in 2022, the town of Shelter Island determined that accepting the grant funds is not in the best interest of the municipality due to changes in project scope that will necessitate, get it out of, additional time and resources for project planning. And whereas the town of Shelter Island values its relationship with Suffolk County and appreciates the opportunity to apply for and receive grant funding. And whereas due to the changes in project scope, the county funding resolution was not adopted within 1 year of the award letter dated August 31st, 2022. And whereas in order to proceed with any new grant application to Suffolk County for other high priority projects in the town, the award for the municipal wastewater treatment system must be declined. And whereas the town of Shelter Island remains committed in exploring alternative funding sources and solutions to achieve the goals initially outlined in the grant application and is permitted to reapply at a later date. Now therefore be it resolved that the town of Shelter Island formally declines the acceptance of the grant funds awarded by Suffolk County for the Island Center wastewater treatment system. And be it further resolved that the town board hereby directs the town supervisor or her designee to notify Suffolk County in writing of the town's decision to decline the grant funds and to express the town's appreciation for the award and the county's support. And be it further resolved that the town board hereby expresses its desire to maintain a positive and collaborative relationship with Suffolk County and to consider future opportunities for funding and support that align with the town's water quality improvement goals. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Be it resolved that the supervisor is hereby authorized and directed to deposit the sum of $25,000 received from the Shelter Island Ambulance Foundation, Inc. to the EMS Capital Reserve Fund. So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much to the Shelter Island Ambulance Foundation. Be it resolved that the supervisor is hereby authorized and directed to deposit the sum of $359.50 from the 1000bulbs.com to the A1490414 Public Works General Ledger account for the duplicate payment. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Be resolved that the supervisor is hereby authorized and directed to deposit the sum of $11,003.04 received from the Shelter Island Heights Property Owners Corporation to DB 2416 vac truck and sweeper rental account in the amount of $8,400 and for town personnel services in the amount of $2,603.04. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Be it resolved that the supervisor is hereby authorized and directed to deposit the sum of $3,176.46 from the Village of Deering Harbor to the Highway General Ledger account, $2,245.50 to the DB 110.445 Highway Repair and Improvements, $930.96 to the 2024 Highway Signs, Brush, and Weed Personal Services. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Be it resolved that the 2024 budget transfers are hereby approved. $47,312 from the Highway Capital Reserve to DA 9950.0 Highway Capital Projects for the third and fourth installment payments to First Citizens Bank for the 2022 Hyundai Wheel Loader. $11,621.70 from the A3120.114 Holiday Pay to A3120.100 Chief Personnel Services, and $4,450 from the A3120.112 Night Differential to A3120.100 Chief Personnel Services, and $1,000 from DA 5140.448 CDL Training to A8160.490 Hazmat Training. So moved.
Second. All in favor? Motion carried. Okay. I'm not going to read the whole resolution because we have 2023 budget transfers. There's 4.5 pages. They are on file in the clerk's office and online. There is one correction on page 32 where it says $19,100 from A1010.497 Town Board Professional Services. That should be 2. So with that correction, be it resolved that the following 2023 budget transfers provided and recommended by Cullen and Danowski after their year-end review are hereby approved for the general fund. So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Discussion.
Yes.
There was an awful lot here.
I have a statement to make if you want to hear and
Sure.
ask any questions, because I
Yep.
did some research and stuff. So our contract accountants every year do these transfers, but they're usually done earlier in the year. And they're usually done in more bite-sized packets as we're going through stuff. So there was an oops moment where it's like, oh, we haven't done these, so that's why they're getting them to us now and with so many of them. There's also, made a lot of notes. I know that Benjamin, you got some calls. I know Amber, you got a call that people were like, well, what are all these about? This looks like we're creating a slush fund or we're hiding something, but this is in the normal course of the annual review. This year, there are more of them because last year our spending was closer to our total spending. So we needed to, in areas where we had shortfalls, we have more areas with shortfalls, which means our budgets are getting tighter and there's less fat in them. And then also, because there were so many of them, we had to pull smaller amounts from more accounts. Like there's a lot of $200, $500, $300 in here. So there's a lot more going on in addition to them all being here at the same amount of time. The auditors review this in addition to the contract accountants. So we do have multiple levels of review on this. There are a few items in here that when Shelby and I were going over them, we called into question whether or not they're correct. So we are setting up a meeting with the contract accountants to go through them. But because we have 4.5 pages and there might be 5 to 10 where we might want to tweak them, we thought it better to adopt this resolution. Shelby can post all of the changes into the accounting system, and then we can do our reconciliation with the contract accountants and the auditors to look for any errors that were made. To that end, let me just think, I know I had something more in there on that section. Yeah, just that it'll be easier for us. For some explanation, I've already mentioned that we're closer to our spending limit on the 2023 budget than in prior years. Go ahead, one more.
3 examples.
I do have some examples. We're also, Shelby and I are also talking about how we're going to discuss presentation of the 2025 budget to the town board, because normally we start with what the original budget is, but because we do have a lot of changes, we're going to take a closer look on how we do this. If we like show the original budget and then the proposed budget, areas where there's no fat, we're going to like have to take a closer look with department heads to say like, okay, you know, like you guys went over, why is that? In areas where they are under budget, we're pulling money from, we'll also be looking at that. Some of it's always unavoidable because like snow plowing, do we know like how much snow we're going to get? Repairs and maintenance on buildings, it's hard to go from year to year. So that's some of the overall picture, just to get into some granular examples, and I'm not going to go through a lot of them, but I just thought a few here and there. Police department, there were categories that were under budget in the police department to the tune of $48,200. There were accounts that were over budget for $114,900. So the net over budget in the police department was $66,700. On a $2.3 million budget, that's a less than 3% variance. However, $23,600 was PD overtime due to the opioid grant, for which we will be applying for reimbursement. So we will be getting that money back in 2024. So if we knock that out, it drops to a 1.85% variance. We also didn't make all of the budget transfers. A year ago, we did a 1-year police contract because we had that high inflation year where inflation was close to 8%, and we didn't want to negotiate a contract hoping that inflation was going to level back off and get locked into an 8% increase for a 3-year or 4-year contract. So we did a 1-year contract. In that process, we never show our hand. We always are, if it's happening during during budget season, the negotiations aren't finalized, we put money into contingency. So there was a mistake made in the spreadsheet. I will take responsibility for that. I should have done a double check on that. Shelby pulls things together. It should be reviewed. I'm not going to put it on Jerry because I know how to look at spreadsheets. And so that was a $26,700 mistake that was made in the contingency. So that leaves a $16,400 true overage and not coming from a budget mistake, which is a 0.7 variance on that budget. But it looks like there's a lot going on that line, and that there's some very specific reasons why. The other thing was gas prices.
Yeah.
We didn't budget enough for gas prices, so that actually takes it down to the 0.7%. So that's one area. To look at something else, Justice Court had $12,450 of overages offset by $6,900 of underages. So $5,550 had to be pulled from other departments, like the town clerk, who had only budget underages. But that reason was we hired a new court clerk. And so adjusting for a slight salary increase over the predecessor, training time with overtime with the part-time court clerk, that's why they had an overage for the year. Engineering, that's a big line item, $102,500 for engineering professional services. That overage is due to the Fresh Pond design work in the in-water body nutrient report that was done. That was covered by a WQI grant. So we haven't gotten full billing on that report. And so we will transfer money from WQI to cover that. So that transfer hasn't taken place yet.
Who did that design work?
That was done by Lombardo Associates. Yeah. And that was
That
done.
was for the pilot project?
No, that was for the overall, what is in the water, what are the remediation possibilities? And it was something that was started back when John Cronin was engineer. Yeah, and we'll get into that more tomorrow when we discuss the grant application again. I have some more information, and more people can, Joe will be here and can speak to that. But so those are some of the, just pulling out 3 granular examples. Bottom line is, with the fact that departments are closer, getting a little bit over budget on some things, and other times a lot over budget, and having to pull from so many categories, as well as last year, in order to keep the tax increase to a more reasonable level that everyone thought was acceptable to the taxpayers, we pulled $405,000 from fund balance. Last year, during this time, I said that is going to make next year's budget really hard. So with all of this, just know when we get to budget season in August through October, that we're gonna have to work really hard and roll up our sleeves. So that's kind of my overview on all of these budget transfers. So did it answer most of your questions, or do you
Yeah,
have more?
but I didn't have a lot of, to go back with the budget and go through everything, it was just a lot, but
And
the
Shelby and I
engineering
agree with
fee
that.
jumped out at me.
Yeah,
The budget, last year you appropriated $12,000
Mhm.
for professional services, and I saw $102,500, and it was like, whoa.
And what we should have done, and I'm gonna pay much closer attention to, when Shelby and I, we're trying to close 2023 so that we can start to look at 2024. When the grant was awarded from WQI to cover those, we should have done a revenue increase for the transfer of the grant coming in from WQI, and then an increase in the professional fees in the engineering line to cover that. So we will make sure that we do those going forward. And I've got so many spreadsheets that I have going when I'm signing checks and purchase orders and things like that. So I'm doing a much closer job than I've ever done tracking expenditures. We'll be doing more budget transfers during the year, because I already have concerns about categories. But Shelby's like, no, wait until we get all of the accruals and encumbrances posted from 2023 when we close into 2024. And I may not be losing sleep over how much money we're spending this year. So.
And I want to thank you for, making the
I'm
time.
not done.
Oh, sorry, go ahead,
Is that
Elmer.
all right before you do the wrap up?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Why are LoSAP funds for the firemen being depleted, seemingly?
Tell me which page you're on.
I'm not sure.
Because the LoSAP is not for the fire department, it would be for
Please,
the,
no officers.
no, it's for EMS.
Oh,
We have a LoSAP program for
Oh, okay, I
EMS.
thought it was the fire department.
Yeah, so, and actually that 52,000, are you saying the 50, it popped out at me, 52,000 from the LoSAP line? That should have, and it hasn't been paid out, so that should be an encumbrance. So that's one of the items that Shelby and I are gonna talk to the contract accountant about, why are you putting it in as this? There's a couple of, the audit is the same thing. It's like it should be an encumbrance, not
So,
a transfer. So we will be getting to the bottom of that. So at our next meeting, what are we in June, June 24th, we will have a few more adjustments to the schedule.
The only other thing that jumped out at me was the town clerks seem to be taking a hit.
Yes, yes, and that I mentioned that.
That's over, right? So I had budgeted for another town clerk spot, and that never happened, so.
And during budget season, we'll be reviewing whether or not her staffing levels.
All right, thank you, Amber. There was an awful lot here to try to digest.
Yes, yes.
what else? Thank you for taking the time today, because I was in your office on this.
Yeah.
And, you know, the day of a town board meeting is a busy day for everybody. We had the Fresh Pond stuff going on.
Yeah.
But, thank you for making the time to
Yeah,
help us all understand it.
yeah,
clear it out.
and Shelby and I had already last week started to go through these, because when she presented this to me, I was like, oh, wow, like, this is a lot. So she and I were already starting to, and had already previously sent off emails saying, we need to go over this, and we've highlighted some things, and we've already got one reconciliation scheduled from them, and so now she'll post this, and we can finish the reconciliation from our side. So it's like, we only just got this last week from the contract account, so,
Thank you, Amber.
yes, so we're working on it.
Extend the thank you to Shelby.
Yeah. That being said, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
So wait, I'm next. I'm gonna get to the end of this whole lot.
Yeah, page 34.
Be it resolved that the supervisor is hereby authorized to expend the sum of $2,184 from the A3120.491 PD contracts account to Vigilant Solutions LLC for the annual renewal fee for a term of July 2024 through June 2025. So moved.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
be resolved that 2024 general claims numbered 841 through 1029 in the amount of $281,940.87. 2024 highway claims numbered 98 through 137 in the amount of $33,782.16. And 2024 Community Preservation Fund claim number 6 in the amount of $3,276.52. 2024 West Neck Water District Fund claim number 1 in the amount of $27,203.92 are hereby approved for payment as audited, and the supervisor and/or board member is hereby authorized and directed to sign the approval for payment of same. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. That concludes the resolution part of our meeting. So we will, what's the word I'm looking for?
Adjourn?
Not adjourn, recess, thank you, recess. The regular part of the meeting, and open the public hearing on the proposed local law entitled Local Law Amending Chapter 109, entitled Site Plan Review, to expand the applicability of site plan review. Do you have to read the public notice or the pertinent part of it, the legislative intent?
I don't have it with me. I don't have it with me. I just read, what you read is what I read.
Oh, I see, I have it. So the legislative intent is the town board finds that the current applicability of site plan review is too narrow, as it only applies to businesses and does not capture other uses that may have parking, lighting, loading, and density impacts that are more intense than that of a dwelling or accessory thereto. In order to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the community, the trigger for site plan must be expanded so these non-residential uses can be properly vetted and situated. And so we strike the language that says when any business, and change it to land use that's permitted pursuant to chapter 133 of the town code, except a single family or two-family home use on a single and separate lot and customary accessory uses thereto. Anything else you wish to highlight, Stephen, or did I capture it?
I captured it perfectly. And it's just in line with other municipalities. This code was written, as it says in the legislative intent, too narrowly. And it didn't capture other uses that could have negative impacts on the community if it's not ameliorated by specific siting and other conditions.
So I will open it. We'll start with anyone in the physical audience who wishes to speak on this topic. Anybody in the Zoom audience who wishes to speak to this? Okay, it's a pretty simple change, so we will close that public hearing. All in favor of closing that?
Aye.
Aye.
Next, we will open the public hearing on the application of Karen Fury, 142G North Ferry Road, to request an exemption from the dock moratorium on the processing and approval of new dock permits by the town board. I think that basically says what the
Yes.
public hearing was. I'd like to start with you for a minute, Stephen, just to set the guidelines on exactly what this public hearing is about.
Sure. You know, the moratorium regarding docks had in it a safety valve, and it's a variance process. And basically, it allows someone to make a case that their application should be heard, notwithstanding the moratorium, if they can prove unnecessary hardship. So I believe this gentleman is here to speak tonight about that. There should be no real discussion about the substance or the merits of the underlying application. He should just have an opportunity to state why his client, the applicant, would serve an unnecessary hardship unless the gate opens and he's allowed to have the application that's currently adjourned because of the moratorium to be real.
Rob, if you would introduce yourself.
Yes, Rob Herman, Event Consultants, on behalf of the applicant, Karen Fuhr. How are you? So following Steve's introduction, so first and foremost, I need to make it clear that we are not here as a result of an application for a new dock, but because we requested to reconvene a currently adjourned public hearing on an application concerning an existing dock that was prepared and modified without a permit. And it's a matter that has been before the town board, extending all the way back to early 2023. So while I understand that tonight's hearing is not an appropriate forum for discussing the merits or technical details of the pending application itself, particularly since I believe there's a couple new board members, nice to meet you, that were not here at that time to briefly provide some background to support the case for why the exemption should be granted, so that the applicant and the board can in fact move on to reconvening the public hearing on the pending application. So to that end, and again, I promise I'm not going to get into trying to justify just going to explain what happened and in what order. About 2 years ago, in the spring of 2022, Karen Fuhr, the property owner, proceeded to undertake repairs to the existing dock, whose original construction was actually authorized by dock permit 2267, which was issued to a prior owner, Ralph Cast, in 1998. Based on Town Code Section 53(9)A, it was believed that repairs could be done without a permit because they met certain guidelines, but what ultimately transpired was that those repairs and a modification to the landward end of the dock ended up exceeding the regulatory limitations on repairs not requiring a permit. So as a result, notices of violation were issued both by the town and by the State Department of Environmental Conservation. As the board knows, the method of resolving an outstanding violation with the state DEC is in the form of a compliance conference. That process played out quite some time ago, I believe at the end in the fall of 2022, and the DEC rendered a determination that the dock could remain as it is. But the process with the town at least part of the process of resolving the violation of the town is to submit a permit application to the town board, essentially seeking to legalize the work that was done without a permit, which may then be further modified by the board. But one way or the other, they have to go through the permit process. So in response to an application that was filed directly by Ms. Fuhr in December 2022, the town board held a public hearing on February 28th, 2023, over a year ago, at which time the hearing was adjourned, and I was not part of the application at that time, so there may have been other reasons, but at a minimum, because the board did not at that time have comments from the WMAC, who had not yet reviewed the application. It was my understanding that the matter was further complicated by the fact that there was a separate wetlands violation involving stockpiling of soil, which had nothing to do with the wetlands, nothing to do with the dock. It was to fill a void up in the southwest corner of the property, but the material itself had been placed in the wetlands regulated area and triggered a violation. So ultimately, after trying to navigate a resolution to the matter herself, Ms. Fuhr ultimately retained my firm and consultants to assist her. And it has taken me some time to reach this point because in addition to needing to familiarize myself with the history of the dock and Ms. Fuhr's progress with the town, I had to spend some time sorting out with the town clerk, with the town attorney, the building department, and I had conversations with members of the town board and the WMAC at that time, exactly what needed to be addressed, in what order, with which agency within the town, and in what format. So ultimately, we got on track with that. I did also want to secure an updated survey to document a current tidal wetlands boundary and the exact configuration of the dock subsequent to its repairs and modification, with the expectation, not realizing as we're going through all this, there would be a moratorium and we'd have to go through this intermediate step, but basically trying to get all the information about the current conditions of the site that I possibly could to present to the board. So the culmination of those efforts was a letter that I submitted to the town clerk dated April 15th, 2024, wherein I requested the continuation of the public hearing that was adjourned in February 2023. Again, this was quite some time before the passage of the moratorium. In response, I was advised by Ms. Wilson that we would need to appear before the board for this public hearing process to request an exemption before being able to reconvene the hearing on the pending application. It does seem to me to be, it's a little bit of complicated, a little bit unusual situation. And I think based on this history, the justification for the town board to grant the exception should, to a certain degree, be self-evident. I understand from speaking with Steve, from speaking with the town board, the WMAC, with code enforcement over a period of several months, the town is very much interested in Ms. Fuhr resolving this now longstanding violation relating to this dock. And perhaps just as importantly to this board, there are elements to the repairs and to the dock construction, not just ones that were made during the course of these repairs by Ms. Fuhr, but by the prior owner, as we figured out from looking at older surveys that the dock was not originally constructed in complete compliance with the originally issued permit. So there were several recommendations the WMAC made, for example, not going to get into them now, but basically for the purpose of trying to improve the environmental condition of the existing dock for the sake of the environment. So for those reasons, the town board, I would think, would be just as interested as Ms. Fuhr in granting an exemption so that this process can go forward and this thing can finally be resolved. There is an additional hardship to Ms. Fuhr that is, I'm sure that the board would suggest is self-created, but when the work was originally stopped, the ramp that connects the catwalk to the float was not yet reattached to the end of the repaired catwalk. So basically, you've got a situation where this high catwalk goes down and then it just drops off. So whether you have children or pets or passerby, whatever, there's currently no connection between the catwalk and the float. I mean, the float itself was never changed. The float is the same place it was in the same dimensions that it was approved. The catwalk ends in the same place. And I mean, I would just add, I guess, no matter what the town board does here or what decisions the board may make in terms of how the catwalk should ultimately be corrected or changed, I think there would be a mutual interest in also at least allowing this ramp to be reconnected so that you get rid of that issue. That's maybe beyond the scope of what the board can address here, but I just did want to mention it because in the context of a hardship, that ramp has been off that catwalk for quite some time now and will continue to be off that catwalk for the foreseeable future, at least until the board is eventually able to hear the substantive merits of the pending application. So that really is the extent of our case. I can't really, I'm not able to really get more into the technical merits, but we would like the opportunity to do that. And I think the ultimate problem here is that the violation cannot be resolved without this board granting a permit that not just legalizes the repairs, but may require modifications to the repairs to bring it into greater compliance with the prior permit, with the dock code, mitigation from environmental conditions, et cetera. And you can't get to that point without reconvening the public hearing, and we can't reconvene the public hearing without granting an exemption here that allows us to get back to that point. So that's why we're here. I apologize on behalf of Ms. Fuhr that it's taken this long to get to this point. But as Steve can attest, I have had various communications with various members of the town for running months now to figure out exactly what needs to be done to get to a certain point. And then that got derailed, if you will, by the moratorium process.
I acknowledge that he's been working hard on behalf of his client from behind the scenes. But a couple of things I just want to add to this is, number one, the purpose of the dock moratorium was to update the dock code. The dock code is in a version that's being ready to be presented to the town board, and it will be presented tomorrow. So if all goes well and we update the dock code, have the public hearing, that potentially could be 2 months on the early side and maybe 3 months. Looking at the supervisor.
Pulling up the timeline.
Give me a second. I didn't have that open.
Just a spreadsheet.
Yeah, because the dock moratorium is set to expire August 6th, and I think.
August 23rd.
Oh, okay, because August 6th, I think, is when we submitted.
May 6th adopted, they
Okay,
filed it May 23rd.
okay. That actually feel better is. I was updating a spreadsheet the other day and slotted in the dock timeline based upon the presentation tomorrow. Yeah, we hopefully on track to set the public hearing on June 24th, have the public hearing on July 15th, and adopt August 5th. So it was like right down to the wire. So that's
So that
potential timeline.
yeah.
If there's not a lot that comes out of the public hearing that changes what we put for the public hearing.
That being said, can you just comment on how your client would suffer unnecessary hardship if they had to wait till that August date to be heard back?
Well, I mean, so there's a couple of things. One is the safety issue, which is the one I think that they are most concerned about. That could be dispensed with if the town were to adopt a resolution that allowed them to at least put the ramp back. Again, this is a permitted dock, it's a permitted ramp. They would just be putting back the same thing that was permitted to be there in the first place. The other obvious issue is just that they don't have use of the dock. This has been going on for a long time. This would now be the second year that they would have no use of a permitted dock. And again, it's hard not to speak to the substance of the issue, that this is not like somebody went out and built a new, illegal dock with no permits and no history.
There was nothing there, yeah.
Yeah, it was an existing dock. It was permitted dock, and repairs were made that exceeded those exemption limits. And I think it's important to note, it's hard to answer your question without having some context of the substance of what was changed. But basically, what was added to the dock was not added to the waterway. Or even over the wetlands. The part of the catwalk that was added it's like a ramp extension over the lawn. So there are other issues that will have to be discussed in terms of what the original permit required of Mr. Cast versus what Ms. Fuhr purchased. And she now has to bear the burden of probably making some of those changes. And I'm sure Steve would say, had they come in for a permit at that time, that could have been discussed at the proper forum at a timely fashion. But at this point, I think there are recommendations that WMAC has made. I believe Ms. Fuhr is agreeable to those recommendations. I think there are self-evident recommendations of changes like open grade decking and things like that can be made. So, one could argue at this point, it would just almost be punitive to the property owner to make them continue to wait. Because again, it's not like they went out, they built a brand new dock, and had they done it the right way, they would have been subject to these new requirements. This is a dock that was permitted in 1998. It was not extended into the waterway. It wasn't changed in the waterway. The elements of the construction are those which the WMAC has pointed out. Whether it's open grade versus timber decking, whether it's treated piles versus untreated piles. But it's not like the dock is going to be there or not be there as a result of this change in your dock code. It's a legally permitted dock, and there are some improvements that need to be made. And to that point, again, Steve, I guess it goes a little bit outside the hardship to Ms. Fuhr. But if there is a concern that some of these changes get made sooner rather than later in order to mitigate the condition of the existing dock, there's really nobody's gaining anything from letting that just go through an entire additional growing season.
Is there a benefit to the environment?
Well, there is. That's my point. So if you'll give me a little latitude to.
Well, you mentioned, untreated versus treated.
Right. So with respect to a couple of things that the WMAC had wanted, although I'm not sure if the old permit actually required open grade decking, but it was something that the WMAC had recommended. So that's the difference between the decking having the openings in it that allow light to penetrate and allow marsh grass to continue to grow beneath the catwalk. So that was one thing they had suggested. The original permit did require that untreated lumber be used, and there was treated lumber used, I believe possibly with the original construction, but certainly with the repairs. So the sooner some of these dock changes are made, I think that WMAC, you probably have it, I submitted it in my package, but there was a request that the pilings below mean high water be replaced with untreated pilings. So the sooner that happens, the sooner the treated pilings come out of the water. There was a recommendation, one of the recommendations related to the DEC's requirement, which was a condition of the consent order, that the float be chocked. And the idea of that is to keep the float up off the bottom. So that's something that Ms. Fuhr has to do, even just to comply with the DEC consent order. So that's another issue that I was trying to stay out of the weeds with here, but in order to comply with the state's consent order, that work has to be done within a certain period of time in order to be compliant with what the state required, and it matches the WMAC condition. And again, she has no objection to it. I mean, she understands she has to do it. So I don't think this is a process that's really, poised to be some really complex or contentious thing. I think it's been acknowledged what was done, what should have been done differently, and probably now how to fix it.
Can I ask you a couple questions, Joe, if you don't mind?
Like an answer.
You say changes, and changes on the dock, changes. Was there modifications to the dock?
I'm talking about changes that the WMAC wants to see made to to the work that was.
The original dock, was it modified anyway to enlarge it?
Do I have some latitude to answer that question, Steve?
Of course, a town board member has some questions.
So one of the things that I believe had come up with the WMAC and the town board at some point was the belief that Ms. Fuhr had expanded the width of the catwalk from 4 to 5 feet. Because the original permit was for a 4-foot catwalk. What we found out from getting the survey of the property from prior to Ms. Fuhr's purchase, the catwalk was already 5 feet. So she's in this sticky, unfortunate situation where she actually replaced the catwalk in place. But it was in place of a catwalk that was already out of compliance with the original permit. So I know there was a lot of back and forth with the WMAC. I think it was it John Needham that I spoke to at some point. Some of the members wanted to see the width reduced, and other members were saying, God, to do that, you're going to have to go in and pull up all those pilings, pull up all that structure again, redisturb that entire area. So they didn't want to see that. They felt that it could be better served by replacing the timber decking with open grate decking. So that starts to get into some of the technical merits of the case that we can discuss, once we get to that.
Yeah, 'cause this is still gonna have to go, the hearing that's adjourned has to reopen and he can make his pitch.
Right. So
So the purpose of this is just to try to make a compelling argument that,
All right.
I think,
But I think your question was, were there
catwalk
material
enlarged?
changes as the crow flies?
Was the catwalk elongated in any way, or?
Only on the landward side, and when I'm before you at some point, my proposal is gonna be to get rid of most of that added catwalk on the lawn side and just replace it with an incline ramp, because the catwalk has to be
Yeah,
elevated
that's-
above the marsh.
we're getting a little.
No, I just.
Well, can you define as the crow flies?
So again, as the crow flies, there is a section of ramp that was added to not an elevated catwalk, but a ramp down and then decking on the lawn, none of which is really necessary. It was just added because it's, more convenient to walk on the wood than it is to walk on the lawn. And if it's wet, it gets muddy, et cetera. But at that point, you pass the wetlands. So of the structure that was added, I think most of that actually can be removed. So that's going to be one of the things that we talk about. So that's the only material change as the crow flies. But again, the sooner we can get back to you, the sooner that part can also be removed. They're going to need a ramp to get up to the catwalk, but it doesn't need to be, 15 or whatever it is, 20 or 25 feet long as it is now.
Does this become a wetlands issue?
No, it's dock. Because if it's in connection with the dock, you don't have to go.
Any other questions from this?
No, thank you.
Anyone in the physical audience who has a question? Anyone on Zoom?
I know that Ms. Fuhr is on. I don't know if she wants to speak, but I assume they'll let you know if they do.
Rob, I am on. I appreciate everybody's time and the presentation by Rob. And I think he pretty much outlined the hardship and what the willingness on my part and my family's part to make it all work and go from there.
Thank you. Okay, I think we can close this public hearing.
Make a motion to close the hearing.
All in favor?
Aye.
We will put this on for the June 11th work session agenda, because tomorrow is too busy.
And you'll let me know what the outcome is? Okay, thanks so much.
It would be,
Try to participate. I was blocked.
oh, okay. All right, Kim?
This is another instance of where Stephen Kiley is having backdoor communications with the applicants, for these, whether it's a dock application or, whatever. It's backdoor communications. It's backdoor, it's backdoor communications. Could we possibly have this done in a public forum?
Right now, we're just discussing whether or not to allow this application to be reopened. And then if we choose to do that, we'll reopen the public hearing and discuss the application in full then.
Yeah, but what I'm talking about is that I get blocked when I try to discuss these things.
You'll have an opportunity at that public hearing. Okay.
What about now?
Do you have anything to say as to whether or not we should reopen this public hearing?
Yeah, I'd like you to keep open this public hearing, because this is just what happened with the Ramshead Inn, application to have a, commercial dock in a residential area. Got shut down then, spent hundreds of hours, spent a lot of time, submitting legal analysis to you guys.
Okay, that
And it
sounds
was and it was ignored. And you're doing it once again.
Well, no, this public hearing is purely for whether or not we should allow this applicant to have their publich hearing reopened now, currently.
Of
or wait-
course, that's
or
what
wait
we're
until
talking about.
After August
That
23rd.
is exactly what we're talking about. It's
So
about
we-
having public input, about acknowledging the legal arguments that have been made to this town board, and you guys are just ignoring it. It's a kabuki theater.
Now that Mr. Bronstrom had a chance to weigh in, do we want to?
Make a motion to close the hearing.
Well, I'm not done.
Oh,
You should not close this public hearing, because we haven't heard about, Stephen Kiley's backdoor communications with the, applicant for this. We haven't heard anything from, take a bathroom break. It's just one more instance of you guys don't listen. You don't consider the that are submitted on these things. It's for deal making. That's acknowledged.
I think we heard all that. You kept going in and out, but we got the gist of it.
Well, I could keep going.
No, I think we got the gist of it.
Well, you say that I got in and out. Let me just point out.
Please don't.
Kim, you keep muting yourself.
Muted.
You're
You're muting yourself, Kim.
Not doing that. What I'm saying is that guys are not listening to legal submissions, written legal submissions on all of these issues. You don't acknowledging, you don't, report them in terms of, has anybody made any submission to the town board?
On this application?
It was noticed for public hearing for today, so this is the opportunity. It's been in the paper, it was noted 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, I'm talking about this application.
I am Miss Boyer's attorney. I'm sitting on the line. So yes, there has been application for a legal, and if that's what you're asking for.
So, yeah, this is just purely about whether or not we're going to reopen it. So we will take this up on June 11th to discuss whether or not we want to reopen the public hearing.
And what about the opposition that has been submitted to this application? You didn't acknowledge it? You didn't?
We will take it under advisement and discuss it at the town board work session.
You know,
on
Amber,
June 11th.
that's really kind of wants. Well,
But that's how the process works. That is how the process works.
not how.
We listen to the public at public hearings, and then we discuss things at work sessions. So we will continue with closing this, and we'll pick it up on June 11th, the town board work session.
Amber,
Keeps muting himself, so. Okay, so the next public hearing
But
is,
just for the record,
Yes.
you made a motion to close,
we made a motion to close. All in favor was aye.
and then he was commenting
After the
after.
fact.
Okay.
Yes, but I.
oh,
I
thanks,
just
thanks,
redid-
thanks.
Okay, so that public hearing is now closed. We'll now open the public hearing to determine whether to utilize Monantic funds.
No,
WQI funds, yeah, sorry. I'm like, wait, what am I reading? The costs associated with the Monantic.
guys, you're up.
Quiet. Public hearing to determine whether to utilize WQI funds for the costs associated with Monantic Creek Water Quality Study Project. Anything to add from the public notice? We will open this up to the public.
Here to support it. Spoken to you all unless you have any questions.
This is a request for $2,800 of WQI money. It was approved at a WQI meeting because it's not under the blanket IA approval process. We always have to have public hearings for any other than IA system requests, unless they were commercial. That wouldn't qualify either. So
And this is for what piece of equipment?
it is for, let me just, there's 3 monitoring sites that they're trying to bring online with software and calibration fluids. And then there's to replace a DO sensor cap every 6 months.
Dissolved oxygen.
Oh, dissolved off, oh, thank you. Okay,
Wait, can you just step up there?
and identify yourself, please.
Let's do great. We have 2 stations that we funded with our neighborhood contributing to that last year. And we ran them through last November. And the original plan, when we worked with USGS and the WAC, was to have 3 stations, one at the mouth of the creek, one mid-creek, and one at the head of the creek. We were only able to afford the 2 and the funds we raised last year. So we went to WQIA to fund the 3rd station, which will be at the neck of the creek. So that's what this is. We've reported all of our findings to Joe. It's going to CCE, it's going to PEP. So we're working with all of those groups to get that information out there and see what their feedback is, what next steps we might take, and all of that kind of thing. And we in fact just heard from Stony Brook. They did a kelp program, which they just pulled out last week, and they're gonna be back this summer to do oysters and other kinds of seaweed growth in the creek to see what they can do. And Back to the Bays is also doing a pilot oyster reef program in the creek. And so we've also given them our information, and so they're working with that as far as where they locate things and how that works. So that's what this is.
Didn't we talk about this at PEP?
Yes.
Yeah.
And also WQI.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Yeah, no, I don't have, I think it's,
Thank you.
it's fine.
Thanks, Alice. Anyone else from the present audience, the physical audience who wishes to speak on this?
We think it's a great idea.
That was Linda McCarthy speaking. She said it was a great idea. For the record.
Okay.
And then is there anyone in the Zoom audience who wishes to speak to this? Okay. Have a motion to close this public hearing?
I make a motion?
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the next public hearing is on the application of Richard Coles, 36 Ram Island Drive, for permission to install mooring at a location designated as latitude 41.08013 degrees north and longitude 72.30123 degrees west. WMAC report from the liaisons? I pulled
you
it.
have it?
Yeah.
Good.
WMAC adjusted and approved the following location to 41.080291 degrees north and longitude 72.301335 west.
Okay.
So, slight modification, and it was approved by them.
Mhm.
So we'll open this up to the public for anyone who wants to weigh in on both more. Anyone on Zoom? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to close this.
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. Okay,
I have to recuse myself for the next one.
oh, okay, and reason being,
Reason being, Mr. Kotula is a part-time employee of Shelter Island Yacht Club, of which I am vice commodore. So,
okay, so this next public hearing is for the application of John Catula, 37 Smith Street, to install a mooring at location designated latitude 41.066882 degrees north and longitude 72.310762 degrees west. And the WMAC report was, the application was accompanied by 2 maps, each listing different coordinates. WMAC unanimously approved location stated in the application with the 41.066882 degrees north and the 72.310762 degrees west.
Okay.
So is there any public that wishes to be heard on this one? Have a motion to close that public hearing.
I make a motion.
Second, all in favor?
All in favor? Aye.
Okay, that one is closed. Okay, so we will now go back into the town board meeting. Oh, we can pull. Okay, good.
Oh, I think it's locked.
We have 3 resolutions for after the public hearing. We did not think that, as generally there are no objections to mooring applications. We have those 2 resolutions. We also did not anticipate anything on the WQI. We would have pulled it had there been public objections to it. But because this is a project that the Minnetonka Creek Keepers are trying to implement now, we wanted to expedite this resolution so that they can get moving with it. So, Meg, do you want to start us off?
Yeah. Whereas Richard Coles, 36 Little Ram Island Drive, has petitioned the town of Shelter Island for permission to install a mooring at location designated as latitude 41.0818013 north and longitude 72.30123 degrees west. And whereas public hearing is duly held on the 3rd day of June 2024 for all persons to be heard in favor of or in opposition. Now therefore be it resolved that the town clerk is hereby authorized to issue a permit for the aforementioned installation. Location designated as latitude 41.0802991 degrees north and longitude 72.301335 degrees west per WMAC recommendation. So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
No.
Oh, yes, you, please.
Oh.
This fell off.
And he'll just, by the time he walks around. Whereas John Petula, 37 Smith Street, has petitioned the town of Shelter Island for permission to install mooring at location designated 41.066882 degrees and 72.310762 degrees west. And whereas public hearing was duly held on the 3rd day of June 2024 for all interested persons to be heard in favor of and opposition, now therefore be it resolved that the town clerk is hereby authorized to issue a permit for the aforementioned installation. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Perfect.
Got the sound pat.
No, you made the loop. You get the last one.
Okay. Whereas the Menantic Creek Keepers appeared in front of the Water Quality Improvement Authority, Advisory Board to make an application for funding the Menantic Creek Water Quality Study Project in the amount of $2,800 for the third monitoring site equipment and replacement of DO sensor caps for sites 1 and 2. And whereas a public hearing was duly held on the 3rd day of June 2024 for all interested persons to be heard in favor of or in opposition to the use of funds, and now therefore be it resolved that the aforementioned request is hereby approved and the supervisor or designee is hereby authorized to execute any and all documents associated with the project. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. That concludes the business portion of our meeting. At this point, we open it up to the public for anything that is out there.
Be free.
Well, the physical audience is leaving the room. Is there anyone on Zoom?
This is John Evans. I got something to say if you want to hear it.
Okay, sure.
All right, as you know, I was a petitioner on the Article 78 with 7 Cheekwood Avenue. And I just, before the decision was made, I had to attend probably 4 to 5 meetings, but at least 4. And I saw what went on, at the planning board. And what I saw was either 6 or 7 people that relied totally on Ian McDonald for advice. He recused himself from voting on the 7 Cheekwood Avenue, which he designed as an architect. But I think he did speak privately to the other people. But in any event, as far as the other applications, what I saw was entirely a bunch of people who were completely reliant on Ian McDonald because I don't think they had any engineering or architectural background. And I think that you ought to consider, I know they have stipends and probably some of them rely on the stipends to maybe even support themselves, but I just don't think that I think what you should consider is getting maybe rid of the planning board as it exists and get a smaller board that consists of 3-4 people with architectural or engineering experience. You have people on the island that have that experience. And I think they're better in a better position to make these decisions. And I'm almost finished. I know your time is valuable. The other thing I noticed was I'd sit in these meetings and Beth Baldwin, who was the attorney, submitted bills each time that I thought were outrageous and a lot of money for bad advice. And I think that the decision really outlined and showed the bad advice that they were getting from the attorney. So I'm sure that she was probably selected by Ian But I think that you really ought to look at these, these expenses carefully and consider the board as a whole, because I just don't think they have the experience. It's not their fault. I mean, they don't have the experience to make decisions, and they're totally reliant on the chairman. So that's my riff. Thanks. I'm sorry I didn't have the video. I just see now that the host has asked me to start my video. I'm sorry about that, but
That's okay, we were able to see. Thank
I
you,
can
John.
hit it. All right. Well, thanks very much. I appreciate it. And I note with thanks, your decision to take the decisions back on the wetlands from the planning board, with the exception of one board member that's duly noted. But I appreciate your efforts. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Okay, I will entertain a motion to close the meeting.
I make a motion that we close the meeting.
I would second that motion that we close the meeting.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.